Hey guys, welcome back. We are here to review some drugstore eyeshadow palettes. L'Oreal has just launched two new eyeshadow mega palettes, one called Cheri, My Cheri and the other is called Very Much Love. In terms of layout, sizing, etc., these definitely remind me of the NYX Ultimate Eyeshadow palettes. Of course, both brands are under the L'Oreal umbrella, so I'm not 100% surprised. The Cheri, My Cheri palette is a little bit more of a neutral, warm tone palette. It's got a little bit of a burnt cherry brown sort of tone in there, but most of it is pretty much neutral if you ignore these three shades in the middle. Now the Very Much Love palette is absolutely gorgeous. Look at this color story. This is definitely one set of colors that I do not own in my current collection, and that's really saying something because I have tons and tons of makeup that I've collected over the years. So I was so excited to try this one out. There are a few neutrals if you look at the top two rows, this little quadrant over here. However, most of it is pretty sultry, very rich, smoky, and intense fall-themed berry and plum-toned colors. Just absolutely beautiful. Now, one thing I must let you guys know about is both of these eyeshadow palettes are fruit-scented. So a little bit similar to those Too Faced eyeshadow palettes. If you do not like fragrance in your makeup or you find these a little bit disturbing, then you may want to steer clear of these because the scent is quite present. Of course, as you're applying it, the scent just kind of goes away. It's not going to stay, smelling like fruits on your face for a whole day, nothing like that. But I know some people just do not like it, and these don't smell particularly true to life, if you know what I mean. This palette is scented with sunfruit and this one is scented with berry fragrance, but both of them smell just slightly chemically. Now, if you're familiar with some of L'Oreal's newer eyeshadow palettes, both of these have a similar formula. It's that smooth, slushy consistency that almost feels like a cream. And L'Oreal promises that these are very highly pigmented and easy to blend, easy to build. I would say that's definitely true for the Cheri My Cheri palette because pretty much every shade that I've tried is extremely buttery and very consistent. They're very easy to blend, they go on beautifully, they don't dust right off, and they build up nicely as well. I do not have a problem working with this palette without any primer at all. The Very Much palette, on the other hand, is a little bit inconsistent. There are a couple of the purple shades which are just really patchy. They go on streaky, they don't build up evenly, and it's just all around not easy to work with these shades. And unfortunately, these are some anchor shades which I would need for definition around the lash line, around the socket, etc. But they don't work as well as I want them to. Having said that, most of the matte and satin shades are gorgeous, and these two shades in particular are flippin' gorgeous. Let me just grab a few of the good ones, and you can see, look at that payoff. So you win some, you lose some. But if you're like me and you do not have many of these shades in your collection, then it may be worth it just to invest in this and just skip some of the poorer quality shades. Now I'm going to insert a short clip with the swatches of the Cheri My Cheri palette. You can see that there are no dud shades. Every single one is smooth, it's buttery, it is pigmented. I had no problems working with any of these. I did not need a primer to intensify any of these. They were equally well with fingers as well as brushes. That said, I do need to point out that none of these shades are really very standout colors apart from that one single matte orange. Even the two sort of rusty supposed cherry tones come off more as matte coppery browns in the end. So this is a palette that is not going to give you too much of a different look if you already own a lot of other standard neutral eyeshadow palettes. The Very Much Love palette, on the other hand, is everything I wanted in a berry-themed color story. It's got the gorgeous rosy fuchsia tones, it's got some sugar plum shades, it's got smokies, it's got beautiful rich purples, it's got peaches in there as well, just for some variety. The only problem with this is inconsistency. Some of the paler shades you can see on the top left are barely there. They just do not want to stick to the skin, and some of the deeper purple shades are also very patchy. So if you wanted to do a very strong purple look, there are only a couple of purples that you can work with. The rest would go on quite patchy and would work only as accent colors around the outer corners or along the lash line. The thing that I did notice about working with these two palettes over the past few days is that the mattes are consistently beautiful across the board. So really good job there, L'Oreal. Unfortunately, some of the pearl or frost shades really do need a little bit of work. As mentioned, I've already been playing with these two palettes for several days. Today I'm wearing the Cheri My Cheri palette. I'm gonna cut to the tutorial section where you can look at me applying both of these palettes over 2 days, and then we'll end with a little bit of my final thoughts and review of these two.
I'm just one in a million hearts trying to have yours. I know you've heard that before, but you're perfect, you don't believe it. It's like you don't see it, not at all. Even those days without makeup, that don't mess with your makeup. You don't have to try to take it off. Yeah, you look into the mirror to see what's wrong. Ain't nothing wrong, but I see something more. I'm not looking for one night, I'm looking for all my life. I wanna share this love for more than one. I'm not looking for daylight in me holding you tight. I wanna share this love. You're worth more than just one night, than just one night. I want this one night. I want this one night, one night, one night. I wanna share this love for more than one, than just one night, one night, one night. I wanna share this love. You're worth more. I'm just one in a million hearts trying to have yours. You've heard that before, but you're perfect, you don't believe it. It's like you don't see it, not at all. Even those days without makeup, that don't mess with your makeup. You don't have to try to take it off. Yeah, you look into the mirror to see what's wrong. Ain't nothing wrong, but I see something more. I'm not looking for one night, one night, one night. I wanna share this love for more than one, than just one.
I'm not the one who said that we were done. I'm not the one who said I've had enough. I'm not the one
And that is it for the two quick looks. And what do I think of these two palettes? I would say that overall quality wise, ease of use, general daily versatility, I would go with Cheri My Cheri. For the price tag, this is a beautiful, beautiful drugstore palette. It's got amazing quality. There's pretty much no dud shade in this palette. All of them are very smooth, very pigmented, and they go on very easy. They blend beautifully. At the same time, these are not the most pigmented shadows in the world, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. If you are new to it, if you are heavy-handed or you are not really a pro at blending yet, something like this would be much easier to work with than a very dense, very soft, very pigmented shadow that can look like it's too much right from the get-go. Of course, if you are not new to makeup and you have quite a substantial collection already, you may find this palette to be a little bit too basic. This color story, the kind of shades included in this palette are very common and very available in many other palettes. I'm going to show you a couple. They're not exactly the same, but the color story and the kind of look that you can come up with, I can pretty much recreate this eye look that I have on today with either of these other two palettes. And one is Pretty Vulgar's Phoenix Rising. So it has the burnished coppery oranges, you have the champagne and neutrals, and there are some smoky shades, some red tones and coppers as well. So I can definitely recreate this look with that. And of course, the Pretty Vulgar shadows are extremely pigmented. Maybe not the easiest for beginners to use, but if you want kapow, straight up color, then this would perform much better than Cheri My Cheri, which is a little bit sheerer and requires more building up. The other palette, which I can probably recreate this look with, is my Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. It's got the burnt orange, it's got the soft neutrals, it's got the champagnes, and it's got a few other more berry-toned, interesting cool tone shades thrown in on top of that. That said, if you don't already own either of these more high-end palettes, then it may be a good idea to pick up something like this just so you can experiment with some of the tones and see if you like it before you commit to something that's more expensive. Quality-wise, I have nothing bad to say about the Cheri My Cheri palette. This is a bomb AF palette for the price and the number of shades that you are getting. Even the pale shades perform beautifully well. Look at this. It's just really smooth, really pigmented. Now, the Very Much Love palette to me is very much more hit and miss, which is a major disappointment because I love the color story. When I first saw the two palettes, this was the one that I thought was going to be so bomb. Overall, there are slightly more hits than misses in this palette, especially the middle two rows. These are gorgeous. Look at the colors on here. I love these two shades in particular. Beautiful, so beautiful and very unique. Not even in my higher end palettes do I have necessarily these sort of satin and matte shades. The top row and the bottom row are a little bit more hit and miss. The matte shades are fine, but I find the sparkly shades to be very chalky, very gritty. They dust right off, they do not adhere to your eyelids. And for some of the deeper purple shades, which are there to anchor a look and give you some definition around the socket or the lash line, these are very patchy and poorly pigmented. You will need quite a bit of skill and experience to work with some of these shadows and to also pair some of these more intense shades together, hence why I do not consider this to be a great palette for beginners. Now, I don't really have any higher end palette which would be a good substitute for the Very Much Love palette. It is a pretty unique color story and I love some of the shades in here, so I will forgive the fact that not all these shades are great. The closest other palette that I have to maybe being a sort of substitute for this palette would probably be my Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. It has some of these intense purples, some of the metallic purples, as well as some neutrals. However, no, it's not exactly the same. You don't get that beautiful, vibrant, rich red fuchsia pink in here. And this is probably a little bit more of a cross between the Berry palette and the Cherry palette. So you can see some of the warmer groupings along with some of the cooler tone ones. Now, if I don't remember wrong, NYX has a couple of ultimate eyeshadow palettes, those 16 shade ones, which are very, very similar in size and layout to these. There are a couple of neutral warm ones, which may be possible alternatives to this, but none that are exact dupes. So that is it for my quick try on and review of the two new eyeshadow mega palettes from L'Oreal. As always, I hope you found this video helpful, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!